For those of you guys who are new and haven't been here before, we do the series once a month, and it focuses on business to technical topics. And today basically is kind of a little bit of both, but actually focus on a little more the entrepreneurship side of things. I think that, my personal opinion is that Ceterus is probably has become very successful very quietly. I can't figure out how that's, in a town like this, can't use a clicker, and the USBs are gone, so.
Sure, that's fine, no clickers.
And so, I'm going to let Levi talk about his background hanging up here. I heard you telling a few folks why Charleston, and then he's going to go through all the different. It's kind of nice, you go to some of these presentations and you hear about, startup. Well, in my opinion, he's kind of lived it. What everybody talks about, he's actually lived through it, and he's kind of coming. He needs to come on top. He doesn't say come on top. You never come out on top. Basically, come on top and you exit maybe, but it's a constant, sort of. This progression to the next level, the next level, the next level, where the ultimate prize is an exit, that kind of thing. So what he's going to do is talk about basically the journey to this point and all the issues, and it's kind of a takeaway for some of us basically. For me, basically, the takeaway is going to be what are the pressure points that I need to deal with, because that's what I do. For you guys, it's going to be, I need to deal with this, I need to deal with this as business owners and that kind of thing. So I'll let you take it away, with the introduction and such, and then kind of go from there.
Sounds good. Thanks, Ernest. So I guess to answer your big question there, though, how do you grow a business and do it so quietly? You be an incredibly boring person and do something that's incredibly non-sexy like bookkeeping. Doesn't generate a lot of buzz. But anyway, no, to start this, I will say that we are the ultimate non-company. Okay, I didn't start in Silicon Valley. I started in Kalamazoo, Michigan, and moved to Charleston, South Carolina. Didn't go to Stanford or the Ivy League. I went to Kalamazoo Valley Community College, followed by Western Michigan University. We're not in some fancy technical marketing, security, awesome service. We do bookkeeping and accounting. We don't take care of awesome marketing agencies or solopreneurs. We work with small businesses all around the country. We're not really new and fresh. I started the business 9 years ago. Bottom line, we're kind of like all the normal pattern recognition companies. I think we're doing some really, really amazing, cool things. Our customer base has huge needs. They're a giant part of the economy, and it's very exciting to take care of them. So it's not that we're not amazing in my eyes. We're just not the typical startup kind of company. And I think that's why, to Ernest's point, there's not a ton of, kind of are here and we're growing and we're building something that I think is very cool, but doesn't, we don't always have a ton of attention. Anyway, I'm Levi Morehouse. I am with Ceterus. We are a done-for-you accounting and benchmark reporting solution for small business entrepreneurs. Just to simplify that for you, the done-for-you means we are essentially, say, QuickBooks Online plus your bookkeeper all wrapped into one. And we do that with automation, and we do that with people. So we are a technology business supported with a lot of great people. So our customers have a solution that's done for them. The more I can automate that, the better my margins are, the more scalable we are. But at the end of the day, there's also a person component to it. So I took a few notes here before I get into the slides. So real quick, I want this to be kind of interactive. I love to talk, and I talk too much, but I like feedback and interaction a lot. So anyway, real quick, just to start it off, who here is, I want to learn a little bit about who you guys are, and I won't make everybody go around and talk, but who's been in Charleston their entire life? That's what I kind of know, all right, we do have some, okay. Who's been here longer than 10 years? Longer than 5? Less than 2? All right, great. It's kind of my expectation to be something like that. Who works at a technology company? Excellent. Who is a technical person, an engineer, design, something like that? All right, great. Who's an entrepreneur? Marketing, sales, customer success. Okay, excellent. Well, good. I just want to kind of understand. I got the list of your names for you guys, but just kind of understand what kind of roles everybody does and is doing. Okay, great. Well, let's get going. Real quick, I wanted to tell you guys briefly, I'm not going to spend a ton of time harping on us, but our why is very important to us. the reason Ceterus is in business is to empower small business entrepreneurs. We do that doing two different things. We save them time by doing a task they have to get done, which is their bookkeeping and accounting. And secondly, we give them better information on their business by benchmarking them against their peers and giving them insights that they can take to run a better, more profitable business. Everybody asks, where does the name come from? First, you say it's Ceterus, not Ceterus or whatever. Horrible name choice by me 9 years ago. No one knows how to pronounce it. No one knows what it means. But sometimes I get to explain it, and that can be a good thing. But anyway, it's a Latin word. Like the word et cetera would be a derivative of it, and it means the rest or everything else. Our intention is for small business entrepreneurs to focus on their business and let us do the rest. Let us do a piece of the rest. Let us do a piece of the everything else, the things that have to happen, but don't actually drive them to grow. Again, Ernest mentioned I was going to talk you guys through my story. As much as, again, I like to talk and whatnot, I did a startup grind a while ago, and I really went soup to nuts. He interviewed me, and we walked through it. So if you're interested in that kind of chronological walking through of the story, you can check that out. Been on some podcasts and whatnot as well. So today we're going to take a little different angle. We're going to kind of try to hit some topics and things related to entrepreneurship and tech and Charleston and all that, but not just kind of a walk through the story. Real quick about us, and then we'll kind of jump into the general discussion. Just to give you the really quick recap on the company. As I mentioned, or even what I didn't mention, I started back in high school. I kind of became clear I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I knew for a fact I wanted to be that. I had no idea what I wanted to do. Went to business school, somehow liked my accounting class. Shows you a little bit about me. And I got a CPA, went and worked at a local CPA firm, or a regional CPA firm. Great experience, worked there for 2 years. The itch to be an entrepreneur wasn't going away. Went and worked in and started a few small businesses. In those experiences, I learned I was chasing opportunities, not something I was uniquely great at and could be really, could build something that could truly scale, be impactful in the way I wanted to do it. And I looked at that same experience and I said, every one of these small businesses, there was a distraction in doing the books, doing the payroll, doing all the back office stuff. Needed to be done, distracted me from doing the things I should have been doing, which was growing the business, selling, hiring people, and whatnot. And I said, I love this stuff. It's kind of weird. There's all these great cloud technology coming out around 2008, affordable, useful stuff. Let's go and be a company that provides that to all the other small businesses, where they can just not find the tool, find somebody to use it for them, but be a complete solution. That's not rocket science. Again, I didn't invent the iPhone or something. It's just a simple tool to do some things. That was very attractive, and people started buying in it, and it started growing. About 5 years into that, we'd taken the team from me to about 25 people, and it became very clear that to scale it to where we needed it to go, we had to develop some technology to automate a lot of the work we were doing. We had to focus in on specific niche verticals. We couldn't sell everything to every kind of small business. To truly be great at it, we had to focus on very tightly defined niches. And we needed to move somewhere where we could get some more talent. We were in Kalamazoo, Michigan at the time. That's when we looked and wanted to find a city that was warmer. Kalamazoo, Michigan is a really cold and wintry, snowy place that wasn't very fun. So it had to be down in the warmer areas. Wanted a place that had a cool, vibrant business community, but wasn't a giant city. Being from Kalamazoo, Michigan, it would have been too big of a culture shock to go from 80,000 people to 3 million people or something. So the size, kind of wanted to be that mid-sized city, somewhere that was kind of cool, had some things going on, the ocean, and whatnot. And my wife and I and the business decided, let's move our headquarters down to Charleston. We were looking at Austin, Nashville, Charlotte, so kind of Ernest, here's your competition. It's probably all the same usual suspects. We like Charleston the best out of all of those. Mostly because the beaches, honestly. But once we got here, I learned how amazing the technology scene was here, which is honestly very, very cool and exciting to be a part of. Anyway, we did that. Just real quick, again, the business started in 2009, been around a long time. One of my bucket list items was to make the Inc. 5000. We did that last year. We did it for a second time this year, so I'm pretty excited about that. We bootstrapped the business from 2008 until just last May. That was when it became very clear that this technology we started to build could scale in a massive, rapid way. And I love holding on to my equity. I love not having a board. I love all those things. At the same time, I love even more getting our why, empowering more small business entrepreneurs all around the country faster. And it became imminently clear that we could take on some institutional capital, we could make our platform better, we could grow a lot faster, we could impact more people. So we did that. So we've raised $10 million over the last year, mostly from southeastern VCs. It's been a really great experience. And along with that, we've grown. Our staff went from about 30 people a year ago to around 110 today. We've been one of the best places to work in the state twice in a row. Very proud of that as well. So again, not here to like talk about all the accolades, but just to give you a little idea of the trajectory, where we started, where we've been, and whatnot. All right. I get kind of bored doing things normal ways. So anyway, what I came up with for today was, I'm going to call it Startup Jeopardy. And there's a variety of topics that kind of cover, I think, what Ernest wants to get into and what, this whole CDC is focused on. And I thought we can just go to each of these, we'll click on it, I'll go and have a topic, and we can talk about it for a few minutes. I can talk for a long time, so if you're bored with some of my answers, like everybody do a thumbs down and we'll move to another one. I don't know if we'll get through all these, I kind of doubt it, but we'll just kind of start working through them and just talk about different things. There are things about being an entrepreneur, how's fundraising's been, what's Charleston all about in my opinion, the culture of our company. So just a handful of things that I thought might be relevant to this audience. I'll preface it with, I am not dogmatic about there being a right way to do things and a wrong way to do things. A lot of these things are like my way of doing things. Sometimes which was horrible, sometimes which was great. Might work for other people, might not. So, if there's, I like to always bring that out, that there's different ways that work, a lot of ways that can work, a lot of ways that can't work, and these are just some of my experiences and some thoughts that I have. So, anyway, with that, this forces some interaction. Who is going to pick our first category?
I'll do it.
All right.
Bring it on. Let's do Charleston for 400, Levi.
Charleston for 400. Who wants to keep track? Actually, I'll do it up here. I got a whiteboard.
Make sure you answer the form of the question.
Yeah, do it.
You don't get credit if you don't.
So,
Stern but fair.
we hired a CMO. She started, I think, 4 weeks ago. And I told her, I've got this thing with Ernest, and we're doing this thing. I need a little pitch deck. And she sits down, and she's like, we're going to work through the whole agenda. And I was like, ugh. It sounds like a lot of work. Why don't we just come up with a bunch of topics and do it like Jeopardy? So she was working on this, and Ernest, I was just going to yeah, let's put the board up, and we'll talk about stuff. She goes, no, I want it to be able to click. And when you click on it, it takes you to the page. This is going to be awesome. So anyway, that's why we had to use my computer and this. But what it doesn't do is cross off what we've looked at. That's the next iteration she promises me soon. So anyway, we'll keep a track on the whiteboard of what we do. So anyway.
That might be a product in itself.
I think it is. That is, we're coming up with ideas here. Okay, so Startup Jeopardy. You want a Charleston for 400, correct?
Yeah, bring it on.
All right. So when we looked at Charleston and when I look at my staff, Charleston has a lifestyle that goes with it, right? It's the South, it's the beach, it's this old town, it's touristy, and all these things, which is really cool, right? That's neat stuff. It doesn't always line up with kicking ass, working super hard, building something that's challenging, grinding it out together. It's got this kind of laissez-faire, that's where I go if I just want a lifestyle. I want to work and do something fun and sit at the coffee shop and poke some code and then have a nice latte and do something fun at night. That's great. I'm not opposed to that. But that's counterintuitive to scaling really fast and doing something really hard for a lot of people. So I love that lifestyle. That lifestyle attracts people in. I think over half of our staff have come from out of town to Charleston because they want to be in Charleston. I don't know if any of them wanted to be at Ceterus. They wanted to be in Charleston. They found us. We were hiring. That's great. I think they like being there now. Some of them, most, I hope. But anyway, it's attractive from a top of funnel standpoint. But I look at the lifestyle of Charleston as an amazing thing. It's very attractive. It's having an amazing marketing program in your business. It brings a ton of people in the funnel. You may not want them all in your funnel. We have learned to be so. And again, we've got a fun office now. We've got beer and ping pong and all this stuff. That's great. But we have to scare people away. It's going to be hard. This stuff's not here, so we're here to pat ourselves on the back. That's going to go for 3, 4, 6, 9 months, and we're done. We're trying to build something sustainable and big, and you have to want to be part of something hard and challenging. Not impossible, not you're getting beat up all the time, but you have to be willing to put it in. So, to me, the lifestyle is a double-edged sword with Charleston. It's amazingly helpful. People look at it, they love it. It's way more interesting than saying we're, a tech startup in Tulsa. With that said, the negative side is you can attract people that maybe are looking for that chill out mode. Nothing wrong with that, just doesn't work very well at Ceterus. Anyway, that's lifestyle. So this is supposed to work. If I click here, it takes me back to the main page.
Boom.
Bingo. Good job, Sheila. All right. What's next?
Entrepreneurship for 800.
Going straight to the big one. All right. This one's a fun one. Have you guys heard? This is actually, I stole this one. I stole a lot of these. I'll be honest. Like, a lot of these things are not original ideas that I came up with. But have you guys heard the story of stone soup? Who knows that story? You know it? You want to tell it, or should I tell it?
I mean, it's the woman, they're poor and they're making soup, or they're pretending like the stones are real things. Is that?
No, maybe. Maybe we have a slightly different version of it. But I might have taken some artistic liberty with mine, too. You're close, though. So anyway, this guy comes into town. And he's hungry. And he likes taking care of other people. And he wants them to have some good food. And he's hungry himself. And he goes down by the river. It's this little town. Let's think some ancient town or something. I don't know what time period. And he meets with some local town people. And he says, I have got the most amazing soup. And I want to give you some. And they're like, all right, sounds good. We all like soup. We're hungry. Whatever. And he goes, yeah, okay, all I need a pot. Do you have a pot? So the one guy brings him a pot, and he puts some water in it. And he gets a fire going, he starts boiling the water, and people start milling around. He's like, this soup is going to be unbelievable. You guys are going to love it. It's going to be the flavors you've never had. Your stomach's going to be full. It's going to be great. Does somebody have carrots? And somebody runs and gets him some carrots and tosses them in. And he keeps going through this, and he gets the potatoes, and he gets the spices, and all these things. And every person just kind of puts a little bit in. They buy into his vision a little bit, right? But the idea with stone soup, and this is how starting my business went. I think bootstrapping and stone soup go hand in hand, okay? If you don't get a bunch of money at the beginning, you don't go and get the pot and everything you need and make it and start just giving it to people and hope they want it. You have to be selling, building, creating, pulling people in to create something amazing. You can't do it on your own. That guy by himself has nothing except an idea in his head. Without the pot, without the fire, without the people bringing things, without people being interested. Pre-buying, more or less. By buying in, by putting into it, they're saying, I want a part of that soup. So he's not guessing on the market. He's not trying to figure it out. Bootstrapping is not the only way to go. Raising money is good. There's all these different things. Maybe we'll talk about it on one of these slides. But if you do, and even if you don't, I think there's some component of this edge of it all. You're promising something and you have to deliver it. And it's not because you're selling magic and voodoo. You have to know that when you get this right, it's going to work. And if a few people don't bring their part, you're going to figure out another way to make it work and still give people some really good soup. But the more people you can get to do the part they're supposed to, the better your business can be. So that to me is stone soup. That's an entrepreneurship lesson that I think is really important. Is very much how I did things originally. I'd go out and I'd sell. And I had nobody to do all the stuff I'd done. I knew it was possible. I wasn't selling fakeness, but I didn't have it yet. So you'd sell all day, and then all night you'd be building a spreadsheet and putting some graph together and doing all the stuff that you had told somebody you could do, or learning how to do accounting for an industry you had never seen before. You knew you could figure it out. You're going to put in a lot of work. They had to buy in and believe before they had the product. You couldn't hand it to them. But kind of that cycle ends up creating not only some amazing soup that's really good for everyone, the people that participated and not. Now you have this soup that can go everywhere. But those early people that were part of it are part of it forever. My early employees, my early customers, my early investors, they are like an amazing part of creating what the company's become, and it makes it really fun, in my opinion. All right. Let's see, that was 800, right? All right. That is the same order. All right. Next.
Entrepreneurship for 400.
All right. PM, I love acronyms, by the way. So you can apologize. If you see my employees, apologize to them for dealing with so many acronyms. But PMFF and SWAS, I call it. So PMFF to me is product, market, founder, fit. We hear a lot about product, market, fit. I'm sure you guys have all heard of that, where what you're producing and marketing, that people want it, and there's this amazing thing. It's something you want to hit. I kind of talked about it briefly, but I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. And I tried a whole bunch of things that actually had product market fit. There was no doubt my home care business had product market fit. There was no doubt the industrial refrigeration business I was in had product market fit. My real estate business when I was 19 had product market fit, right? Those things had markets and products that all went together. I think it's critical if you're considering being an entrepreneur or have anything like that to figure out how to get product market founder fit. What is something you are uniquely passionate and interested in? And that, granted, like everyone says, work on what you're passionate about, work on what you love, et cetera, but make sure it's providing value. Make sure it's something that can be what you want it to be. Be incredibly critical of that. I had no idea what that was, and it took me years and years of trying a lot of things to find out. I don't think I ever would have found it without trying several of the wrong things to find out this isn't it, this isn't it, this isn't it. Out of those things, it kind of came, oh, the one missing piece with all of those was this, and I think that is it. And even that, I will tell you, like, I would love to say day one at Ceterus, I knew I had seen the future, and this was it. But it was grinding through probably 4 years of that business before I was set for a fact that it was product market founder fit. And even in that business, I had to say no to a lot of things, said yes to things that I should have said no to figure out how within this broad business you could focus it in on something that truly had the right product, the right market, that all fit together, and it was the right thing for me to take it to the level I wanted to take it to. What I tagged into this is what I call SWAS. And when we made that conversion from a service business, bootstrapped, to a technology business, a SaaS business is how I had to frame ourselves to investors. We are a software as a service. We just happen to have like a whole bunch of accountants that work for us too, which is very true. But I think the term software as a service, SaaS, you guys all understand that term, in this room I'm assuming. It wasn't quite right for what we're doing. And I think there's this entire wave, the next wave of the internet for businesses and small businesses specifically, is what I'm calling SWAS, software with a service. Where again, you don't buy a tool, you don't buy a CRM or an accounting package and then use it. That's great, but that's really hard for small businesses. You buy a tool that is a solution, and in that solution you want artificial intelligence and machine learning and massive efficiencies, but it will require people trained and specialized in it to help you. So it's like your local service provider on steroids, centralized, specialized in your niche or your brand or whatever, but it's a software with a service, not as a service. So anyway, in this product market founder fit idea, that was kind of what I landed on, is this scalable idea was it's still going to be a service, but it's going to bring some attributes of scalability and some amazing technology that's proprietary to it, and that is what I call SWAS. All right, what is next?
Fundraising 400.
All right. I don't speak from Silicon Valley, so everything I say fundraising-wise is not doing with that part of the world. I've never raised money out there. It may be really fun. It may be horrible. I have no idea. Again, I'm not critical of them. It's an amazing ecosystem. I just don't understand it and have never been part of it. Down here, steak is way better than the sizzle. You guys know what I mean, steak and sizzle? So amazing ideas are great. Ideas are a dime a dozen. We all know that. Execution is really hard. To raise money, I found that traction is amazing and it's what matters. Again, I had the either luxury or incredible misfortune of having to work for 7 years and build this service business to 7 figures and all kinds, so like it had something to talk about. It had to have high growth, though. It had to have a lot of metrics. It wasn't just, build a business over 20 years and then go make it a tech business and raise money. It had to do a lot of really hard things to get there, a lot of hard metrics to make it fit into a SaaS model, which was not easy. But having something real to talk about, real customers, a real product, most importantly, real revenue, real margins, real unit economics, that to me was, again, maybe I'm just not a good salesman. I'm not good enough to raise money without it. But the steak was easy. The sizzle around here was less important to people. It was about what is really underneath there. What am I biting into? What's the meat I'm getting? And that to me is kind of my methodology for raising money, is make sure you have a lot of steak and focus on it. Talk a little bit about, you want that long term, you want that upside, you want that vision that goes somewhere. But around here, that's 5% of your pitch, and 95% is What were we planning on doing, and how are we doing against that plan? All right. Anybody else have another one?
Culture free.
All right. I like you guys are swinging for the fences. All right, 1%. So this one's a little bit, again, the culture one's a little bit Ceterus-y, so you guys can take it for what it's worth. But this is some stuff that we kind of like to focus on at the company. We want to be an incredibly important company. We want to do really big things. The analogy I paint for our people a lot of times is the payroll industry. So we talked about bookkeeping, now we're going to payroll. It's getting way more exciting. I can sense you guys getting juiced. Anyway, back in the 60s and 70s, every small business, every big business in the country did their own payroll. A lot of times on paper, ledgers, maybe they had a spreadsheet, but they processed it, they calculated the tax to send to the state, to send to the IRS, et cetera, et cetera. They put together the checks and they sent them in. They might have a local bookkeeper or CPA help them with it. Incredibly fragmented, incredibly inefficient, huge doc on everything the small businesses should do. ADP, with computers the size of this room or maybe this building, invented how to automate the payroll process, automate the tax calculation and whatnot. They took that. They are now a tens of billions of dollar company. And most importantly, they made life better for almost every single business in the country. It is laughable if someone's doing their own payroll anymore. Like, it just doesn't happen. There's a bunch of competitors that sprung up, and there's other big companies and other small ones and all kinds of things. But the payroll industry was created, and ADP kind of pioneered that. Bookkeeping has a whole lot more variability. The technology that you could use in that mainframe would not accomplish everything you needed to do bookkeeping. Today, we have the technology to get there. Our goal at Ceterus is to be the ADP of bookkeeping for this country and to provide that kind of efficiency and value to all these small businesses. Larger businesses maybe has people taking care of them. We're focused on small business entrepreneur. Anyway, that's a huge, huge ambitious goal. And to have tens of thousands of employees from where we are today is incredible to even think about. There's no way to make that leap. You cannot make that leap. But what we've been focusing on for the last year is for each employee at Ceterus, everything we do to be 1% better today than we were yesterday. 1%. And I haven't yet had one of my employees tell me, I can't be 1% better today. I can't do something a little faster. I can't think a little bit harder to move in that direction. And if all of us work every single day to be 1% better than yesterday, and tomorrow to be 1% better than today, we do move and build something incredible. And we're seeing just the tiniest scratch. We're nothing yet. We're a tiny nothing. But we went from 30 to 110 people. We're serving 3 times as many small business entrepreneurs today as we were a year ago. Our platform is amazing. It's doing 50 or 60% of what our people used to do. And that's going to get to about 95% in terms of automation. So really cool things are happening. We're not ADP today. We're still a small nothing. But by all of us being 1% better, I should have done all the math. But that becomes, you guys can compound math. You get pretty powerful. It's a pretty powerful idea. So culturally, our goal is not to make leaps and bounds towards this lofty goal. It's to grind it out every single day, try to be a little bit better, work a little smarter, a little harder, and get a little better. All right. What's next?
How about Chucktown for 800?
All right. Raising capital. So raising capital in Charleston, I will not lie, was a little bit of a challenge. I tried to find Sand Hill Road around here, and I couldn't find it, so it didn't exist. Bottom line, raising capital for me was this weird thing. I'm not from that world, so it started out with just a bunch of phone calls to some random person that someone would give me 5 minutes of time because somebody that they kind of respected knew me through somebody else, and I got a phone call. And it was a very iterative process, and that was people in New York and San Francisco primarily. And I got, over about 50 of those probably. I went from being like ridiculously embarrassed and from my discussion to getting like, okay, maybe I'm kind of figuring out how to resonate with an investor. But anyway, I was going through those motions, talking to people mostly over the phone because I was here and they were other places, and it wasn't a big enough deal to bring me up somewhere yet. I ended up having a business trip to Atlanta for just business for some sales, for some customer prospects. And in that meeting, I was like, well, I'm going to Atlanta. I'm trying to raise some money. Let me see if Atlanta has any VCs. I didn't even know, honestly. So I went to Google and I searched Atlanta VCs. I found 5 or 6 websites. I went to the Contact Us page on the website. Every blog, every podcast I had listened to said, this is not how you get a hold of a VC. So probably don't take my advice for it either. But anyway, I went to the Contact Us page. And again, this is where I had the stake. I had figured out how to condense a couple sentences of, here's the stake. Here's what you might care about. We're doing this. We've grown this much. Boom, boom, boom. They were very concise but targeted information. In Atlanta, that clicked a little bit. I got several positive responses. This was on like a Friday. I'm like, I'm going to be there on Monday. I may as well ping some of these people. Had a couple meetings set up Monday, one on Tuesday morning. Went over there, met some VC firms. Found out there was a firm in Charleston that I hadn't even found online yet. They were brand new. Great people at Larion. I don't know if you guys know Wiley and Lee, but awesome firm here locally. But anyway, kind of once I got into the Southeast network, it wasn't well known. They're not on these podcasts and blogs and everywhere, but it started to get some traction. I ended up pitching a lot of different groups, and in front of groups of them, into the different offices, talking to them on the phone. Got a little traction and ended up raising money from, it was a cool, our first round was a cool combination of Atlanta, was our lead VC, Tech Operators, a group out of Raleigh, Idea Fund, Charleston, with Alarion Ventures. So it was a nice round, all from the Southeast. But again, it's a different network. It's a different way of doing it. It didn't completely, nothing wrong with the blogs and the podcasts that tell you how to raise money. They were incredibly helpful. I got like an MBA in figuring out how to do this stuff from there. But there's slight differences to doing it here in Charleston. You run into the objection a lot. How are you going to scale your team there? What you have today is great. No one's down on that. Everyone, not a single person said, I hate Charleston. Everyone's like, oh my gosh, I love it there. I see why you're there, but can you grow a business there? And it is a challenge. You have to talk about it. You have to have a plan for it and go from there. So it's not impossible. It is challenging, but there's ways to do it. And again, if you want more details or anything, I'm always happy to talk to any of you guys.
Levi, when you were going through the capital raise process, there's all these little pitch events that have kind of popped up. Did you do any of it?
Let me think. So I did Dig South after I had my term sheet done with VCs. I did that. That wasn't necessarily to raise money. That was hey, it'd be cool to get out, and now I'm going to need to hire a bunch of engineers and things. So let's get Ceterus in the public eye a little bit. I never did, honestly. That to me is back to the steak and sizzle thing. When I was grinding out 12, 15-hour days, getting customers, servicing the customer, adding more revenue, it felt more important to get that next customer to prove what I was doing than to go talk to a bunch of people who are all struggling for the same thing. Again, if I'd already had a little money, seed money, I went a different route. I bootstrapped, so maybe it didn't buy me that luxury. I'm not opposed to pitch events. I think they're great. I just don't know what your odds are of actually getting a check that matters at one of those events. So I don't know. For me, it was never the best use of my time at that time. Had we been building some, again, not a book, it wasn't that sexy. If we'd been building some amazing revolutionary technology that investors would have got excited about and wanted to write checks, I might have done pitch events all the time. So I'm not saying there's anything wrong with them, but I never did one to try to raise money.
Do you feel that is a more private process than a public process? So
1,000,000%. I think I've asked many of the VCs and the investors that I talked to, hey, do you ever fund anybody at these pitch events? And almost every time it's no. The only yes I've had is, oh yeah, we had talked to them 3 times before. They were going to be there. We were going to be there. We decided to meet at a separate booth and talk a little more, and we decided we're investing. But I have yet to, again, maybe it happens all the time, but I haven't met that many investors. But the ones I've met have never said they've funded somebody that the first time they learned about them was at a pitch itself. So if you're looking at those as your way to get funded, don't. Do them. Take every chance you can get to get in front of people, but grind out personally get in front of these people. And if you don't have all the networks and relationships and connections, like is the most advantageous, hit them on their Contact Us page, hit them up on LinkedIn, get in front of these people.
I think I'll use what you just said about the fundraising as an example because so other people are going to come through my office and they're barely out of ideation. And they're sitting over there basically telling me they want to raise money. And my argument is exactly, the reason I ask the question is validates what a waste of time pitch events are. After the fact, sure, it's nice to go tell people, hey, listen,
Sure.
And I appreciate that. I would do this exact same thing. The reality basically is that just grind it out. Because what we're finding here in Charleston is we don't have Sand Hill Road money. So your ideas are great. We will give you money after you got a product and you need to blow it up. But we're not going to basically give you money for an idea, even development. So you just kind of bootstrap. The notion of basically what I'm saying is that 90% of better than entrepreneurs out there just want somebody else's money to kind of say, hey, here's what we're going to do. They're just not willing to grind it up. So it's a great, the 8 years, especially grinding it, it's just a great story, and that's how you build something sustainable. So I appreciate that's an important takeaway.
Now, if you have any talent at all, you can probably do that in 3 years, but I'm a little slow on the uptake. So I do agree grinding it out. 8 years is a long time, though. I don't advise that long.
But how did you feed yourself for those 8 years?
What's that?
How did you feed yourself for those 8 years?
That's a great question. So my first year in business, I think I took a 78% pay cut, and I literally filed for the earned income tax credit when I did my tax return. I had 3 kids. My wife somehow let me do this. So if you ever meet her around town, give her a big high five. She's incredible. She put up with a lot. But after that, I had a CPA. I kind of knew if I had a job, I could be making such and such money. Not amazing earth shatter, but I had a solid quality of life. And after that first year, I told her about all the credit cards and things that got us through that year. But until after they were paid back off. But after that, I said I need to have, each year I'm going to make about what I would make on the low end at a CPA firm. So I made a salary. We could survive. And then every other dollar beyond that would hire people, always try to get more staff than I could have. Just like to try to grow something, you have to be not pulling in the cash when you're bootstrapped and you're just running it as a service, you have to be pouring that money back into growing. So after that first year, which was really kind of again, it's not that sexy of a story. It's not like I lived on ramen noodles in an apartment. Again, I'm not a single guy that's just doing that. I had 3 kids. I now have 6 kids. So like I'm not your typical startup guy. So anyway, after that, we kind of just had normal salaries, I guess, but not taking bonuses and things like that as the business grew. That was a lot. Before I had to start hiring engineers, that was a lot easier. You could live on a salary and have a team. Building a product is expensive. Again, and that's why, back to that stone soup thing. If I hadn't been really close, my stone soup didn't include the technology piece until it was the spice on top. I knew exactly what that soup had to be and how it had to taste. And it was going to be some incredibly expensive spice that was going to take it from being a bland, normal soup to something that would blow your mind and the world had never seen. But I knew exactly what that had to be at that time. So pouring that money in, giving up equity, all that was so worth it at that point because I knew it was going to make it truly powerful and unique and unstoppable. But up until that point, I didn't know enough to take on money and have somebody build something that maybe wouldn't have been valuable.
Ultra 400.
All right. We kind of touched on this a little bit, but free beer, ping pong, or something more. Again, it kind of goes along with that lifestyle discussion we had. Same thing with this office thing. Like, I'm just not the guy that thought that's what a cool company is all about. I think it's neat. I have nothing wrong with the cool stuff, and we have all that, and it's awesome. Like, there's nothing cooler than having a beer and toasting somebody at the end of the day after they closed a big deal or something. With that said, a lot of startupiness, it's that double-edged sword thing again. You have to watch if your culture is about that, you're not going to have a very strong, cool team. If that's what they're there for, you've got them sold on the wrong thing. There has to be something more. And again, with us, it's that why. I started with it. Our why honestly matters. I pull all that, again, I'm not a creator of these great things. Simon Sinek has a great book, Start With Why. You may have seen it or heard of it or whatever, but that resonated with me. And our why matters. I think every single person in my company would tell you we are here to service small business entrepreneurs, to empower them, to make their lives better. They may like the beer better than that mission, I'm not sure, but they're clear on it, we focus on it, we make it a big deal, we work very hard, and so our why to us is, I use this as a long-winded way of saying our why matters a ton. These things are great, but they're not what the company's about. It's not what we're trying to build is about. It's not building a cool place for us to all go hang out. It's a nice byproduct if it exists.
You mentioned that. I listened to a podcast this morning, and it was a venture capitalist, and he listed 4 priorities for a business. He's like, first is family, second was your people, third was your customers, and he's like, fourth was your venture capitalist. He said a lot of times people flip it, and they destroy everything.
Sure, that is an excellent point. Excellent point. And the customer and the people, that's you could argue that one.
Yep, back and forth.
I have no disagreement with that, but the VC, definitely needs to become below all
His
that.
point was you make your people happy, they make their customer happy,
I love it.
they make your venture
Yep.
capitalist happy.
Absolutely. And I found that your people can be kind of happy on beer, but it's a fake happy.
Yeah.
When their happiness is driven by making that customer happy, that is a vicious, hard to stop cycle.
We have challenges with keeping the culture, because there are a couple of companies in town, once they got north of 100 employees, the culture they created, they got them there, started to get abused pretty dramatically, and they wanted to believe what they want to believe, but on the outside you can just see it. You know, we probably all know the examples about it, but talk to me a little bit about how do you preserve that once you get north of 100?
That is an unbelievable question, and I am working every day to find that answer. So there's so much truth to it, and I don't know it's completely stoppable. There's this constant tug of war. At 10, 20, 30 people, you all kind of feed off each other in a visceral, direct, hand-to-hand way. And if you know somebody worked late last night to get something out, you want to put in today to help them make up for it. You want to do it with them. You want to be in the trenches together doing something huge and important. And that's more exciting than any of this kind of stuff could ever be. When you get to a certain size, people can start to get lost in the shuffle. There's middle tiers of management, and there's all that goes on. And within pockets, people know who's working hard and who's not. And what we have the luxury of is 10%, 20% or so, I don't know what percentage, a sizable percentage, but not everybody, that will kill themselves for the mission. They love it. But when you get bigger, those people get taken advantage of. And people will ride those coattails. And it can happen. It can happen. And then what that does is it burns them out, and they say, this is stupid. I'm out. I'm done. I've had too much of that. The great people you lean on, and they love being part of it, but they want everyone else to join in that part of it. So trying to keep that and scale it is really hard. We're right at that kind of precipice where again, we don't have like a bazillion problems and all this stuff happening, but I can see it, I can smell it, I can sense it. My leadership team can see it, smell it, and sense it. So it's coming. We're trying to approach it by, kind of creating that same kind of culture within each of the teams to say, let's take that problem at 100 and make that problem be at 500. And maybe that buys us several years of that culture being a big deal. But it's a huge deal. Going up is always tricky. Culture with me was pretty easy. Culture with 10 people was a little harder, but a little more fun. At some point, it's always evolving. So I hope I'm not on the list of horror stories in a few years. I'm working hard not to.
Some got acquired, so it became a different place.
All right. What do we got for time and all
10
that?
minutes.
Okay. Perfect.
I'll actually note on that, on the culture thing. It's almost impossible, especially in acquisition. You're never going to maintain the culture, and that's just a natural progression of moving from a startup with 5 people to 200. I mean, it's always going to consistently change. It's never going to be exactly what you want it to be, which is why a lot of entrepreneurial type people who like what they build and like that culture they build initially end up doing another business versus staying with what they got, because it's just gonna, no matter what you do, the culture is gonna have to change, because the scale of business to 1,000 employees, you have to put really big business organizational type of structure around it to do it, otherwise it's gonna fall apart.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a proven model around going from 100 to 1,000. It's unfortunate, you gotta kind of button down the shirt and put on the tie a little bit to do it. It's just the way it is, right? Unfortunately.
The culture has to change. I agree 1,000,000%. I think at every stage, there's different ways to do your culture. I think Apple and Microsoft have completely different cultures, both way different than they both were at 2 employees or 10 employees. So they've changed a ton, and they'll continue to. And some work for different, there's not a right or wrong on either of those. They're amazing companies that are crushing it, but they're different. They're different cultures. Amazon's a totally different culture than Twitter. And they all succeed in their own ways at various levels. You can argue what drives the success or holds it back, and it's an answer you can never have. But I do see your point, and I know people that say that. Like, it was very, very fun going from 1 to 10, and 10 to 20, and 20 to 100. I think I'm going to enjoy going from 100 to 200 and just continuing to push it, but it's different. It's not the same. That tool that worked a year ago doesn't work anymore. It just doesn't. Like, I can go up and rant on something that with the 30 people in that group would have left them inspired, and that's going to leave 100 people feeling like shit. Does that make sense? Like it's a different type of thing.
Yeah.
And the opposite, some things that will make the 100 feel good would have made these people feel like, oh my gosh, he's singling me out. Now I'm talking to just like a bigger sea of faces. And, so the way you push things, the way you do them and disseminate them, I think there's a lot of ways to do it, and it does evolve all the time. And I'm not sure there's any pure formula to it, unfortunately. I'd love to follow a path.
I've seen a lot of titles recently where somebody calls themselves an evangelist, right? A cyber evangelist,
Sure.
or a computer science evangelist, and they're breeding that excitement in their employees. But we've put things. We're 46 people right now, and we've put things out there to help them grow and to kind of encourage them, cultivate them, mentor them, and they just choose not to do it. And it's kind of like the more you get, the more of those personalities you have, and the harder it gets. When you're small, you're kind of attracting like personalities.
Absolutely agree. Same point. I mean, every single new hire session we have, I offer everybody, I'll give you the book, start with why, and they all seem interested. And like 5 or 10% ever come and take the book. That's fine. Like, there's nothing wrong with it. I tell them at that point. And I also tell everybody we bring in. So part of our culture is you don't have to drink the Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
I always tell them, like, I find it way more fun to drink the Kool-Aid because I love the Kool-Aid. I might just be addicted to sugar. But, like, it makes life and business every day way more fun to be, like, on this thing that's changing the world. But if you're coming in to get a paycheck and have some beer and you do a good job, I'm okay with that. You don't get brownie points for the Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
If you're good at your job, you're going to do well here. If you're bad at your job, you're not going to do well here. It doesn't matter how much you love what we're trying to do. I do think, personally, it's more fulfilling to be great at your job and to love what you're doing and to be excited about being a part of something, but we don't want to force the culture. It's the same thing. Every time you've thrown opportunities out, people that sound like they want in, very few actually opt in to put time and effort into being a part of the culture. As you get bigger, at 5 or 10 people, maybe every single person would. As you're bigger, they like, even it's not nothing against them, they like the idea, but they have kids, they have family, they have other stuff going on. Like, your business just isn't the biggest thing in their life, and that's probably okay. So it's trying to keep a culture. My biggest thing with culture, I don't know if it's in here or not, but is that it's real. Is that it's real and genuine. And it's not contrived, and this is what we're going to be. It's what are we? What parts of what are we do we like? And let's have that be our culture. And the parts that we don't like, let's try to be less like that. But let's pick what we are and let's be that. And let's try to drive at that. And that might shift a little bit over time as well.
Charleston 800. Did we already do it?
I was going to say, I marked some of these. I don't know if we did. Let me see. We did.
Yeah, we did.
All right, one more.
Nice one.
Fundraising 800.
Awesome. Listen, learn, and adapt. And again, in some of my answers, I bleed into the other ones, so I'm sorry. But when I started pitching, again, I listened to a lot of things on how to put a pitch deck together, read a bunch of books, blogs, everything else, and kind of had what I thought was cool. And then I was amazingly embarrassed and thought, I'm awful at this. Everything I'm putting out is just blah, it's nothing. But what I did was I didn't quit. I'm not good at quitting for some reason. I keep trying things over and over. But bottom line, I tried to learn from those lessons. The first probably 5 or 10 times I pitched, I literally threw the deck away, completely started over. After maybe that 10th time or so, I said, okay, a few things in here kind of worked. Let's tweak them. Let's drop those things. Let's add some more. Pretty much every single pitch, and even to this day, again, we did this Series A1 extension round. Every time I pitch somebody, I almost always go back and change something. I'm trying to continually learn and adapt and tweak to have the message resonate. As the entrepreneur, as the founder, as the person in the business, I always say, if somebody's going to talk to me for 2 hours about my business, you will have your mind blown. You'll know that I'm an expert. You'll know that we're doing amazing things. But if I get 90 seconds, I can leave you with nothing. If I get 20 minutes, I might not hit anything that matters to you. So figuring out how to boil down all of this experience you have in this business and all these things you think it can do into the right things at the right time was really, really hard. And I do think it's an endless cycle of continuing to try to figure that out. I don't think that stops. And I finally got it. I got a check from an investor, I'm done. It's a continuous process of learning, listening to what their feedback is, be tuned in throughout the discussion. Learn from that, and then adapt what you're doing to not to change who you are. Don't change your business model. Don't make your margins way higher if they're not going to be way higher. But change the way that you present what you're all about, because that can be done a lot of different ways.
take a couple of questions before we wrap up, and we'll try and make this available, but it's only going to be a little challenging because it's done in.
You can send the PDFs out too. They'll still work. It just won't have the click functionality, which I had to do for Sheila. So if you guys see Sheila around town, tell her her deck was amazing.
I mean, this is amazing. Any quick questions of Levi?
I got one quick question. So in my previous life, the founder of the company, we asked him one time how he wanted to build a company and retain the culture. He said, I want to build a culture based on patriots, not mercenaries. And they threw the question back out, what's the difference between the two? One fights for a cause, the other fights for money. One of the things we always did was the culture of the company was very well established, but it was different for everybody. And it really it was dependent on what their goals were. So we spent a lot of time learning what their employees' goals were and mapping that back towards the culture and the mission of the company. Do you guys do anything like that?
Not in a formal way. We try to be, we love to hear what people's goals are. And I love to be super realistic with people. If you come into this role, here's the role. This is what you're buying. This is what you're getting. Nothing else is a promise. Nothing else is given. I can tell you the way things have been going, we're growing really fast. And if you want to move to this role or this role, there's a chance that's going to happen. But A, you have to be amazingly good at this role and prove that you're going to be good at that role. And that role's going to be really hard. So I like to be real about what you're coming into. Because again, you can get overwhelmed with the excitement. It's really easy to sell people on an exciting startup business.
Right.
When you start raising money and you have a cool office and you're in a cool town, it's pretty easy to sell on that. But to try to be real, so when people leave and don't work, I want them to be like, yeah, they told me that at the beginning. I didn't believe it. It looked too fun and too cool and too easy, whatever. But I want it to be like, I hate this place. I left. It wasn't cool. But I guess if I think back, they told me the truth.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
And it's going to be hard. I would love patriots, and we have some great patriots. Mercenaries is a little extreme, but that's why I like to call them employees. They're getting a paycheck. I don't expect anyone to show up for free and take a bullet for my company. That's
For sure.
that's ridiculous. But at the same time, I want them to be excited and passionate about it if they can be, and I want them to give me honest feedback, honestly. If chasing the patriot is getting us into this weird wonkiness, I just want them to tell me, I want it to be a job.
Yeah.
I want the opportunity. I want the upside. I want financial potential reward. This town could use a bunch of people with stock options making a bunch of money. Even a decent check of money, like a little bump once or twice in your life. A few of the people that worked for me that came from other companies, my CTO is a great example. He's become independently wealthy as a great employee, as an engineer, eventually as VP of engineering, all these different roles where he got 4 or 5 exits in his career, and he's made multiples of what anybody could ever earn in salaries. Does that make sense? And that's hard to build. That's an ecosystem that's tough to build. But that, to me, people should have their eye on that a little bit. But in this town, the odds of that aren't amazing. Don't take a giant discount on your salary for that. Unless you know it for a fact to happen. So, weigh all those things.
Right.
Weigh the mission. Weigh the passion. At the end of the day, I think bookkeeping for small businesses is a game-changing, revolutionary thing. But I think most of my employees would be lying to me if they told me they were that excited about it, too. It's the whole combination. It's getting paid, it's being part of a fun team, it's working on something important and powerful, using technology that's the future, not the past. All that comes together, and different pieces of it matter to different people for different things. So,
as you've grown here in Charleston, have you found it hard to find talent that really fits into what you're looking for?
finding talent here is challenging. It's not easy, but it's not impossible, is what we've learned. So every single role, again, the jobs that you can have somebody that's a year to 4 out of school for are pretty amazing. Again, a lot of young people want to be in this city. It's a different vibe. They're either here and they don't want to leave, or they were in Atlanta or in the Northeast. We get a lot of people from the Northeast. Like, I'm sick of Boston. I want to come to Charleston. So there's a definite pull for that. And that's amazing. But as you grow fast, you do need some people with more experience. So those are the executive hires, the more experienced engineers. Those are challenging to find around here with the right languages. Again, stuff that you're talking to the wrong tech guy, Ernest. I'm sorry. I'm exposed. I'm a business guy. I'm a CPA. I'm not the greatest tech guy. But, you know, to match up the programming language with what we're doing, what we're building, and the experience we need for the various things we're doing is certainly challenging. It is yet to prove impossible. Every role we've needed, again, several times I've been at a board meeting where the board's like, you will never find a CMO. Like, will not happen in Charleston. You're going to have to figure something else out. And we end up doing it somehow, some way. Like again, but at some point maybe we do hit that block where there's a certain position, a certain type of talent is not available here. There's less of them. The good side, again, as I was raising and telling my investors, going through due diligence, they're saying like, can you do this in Charleston? Do we need to relocate to Atlanta or somewhere? And so I talked to several local CEOs that had built companies that had scaled to some level, and the lesson I heard from them, and we're not far enough into it to say if it's true yet or not. We've been a bigger company for like a year, but was that it's hard to attract talent, but it's easier to retain talent. It just the supply-demand thing. There's not 100 tech companies that have 100 employees or 200 in this town. Like there's a great burgeoning scene and it's growing, but there's not the drain and the flip-flopping of talent that you see in the markets where there's a ton of people to hire, but keeping them on board is a lot trickier. So it's got its pros and cons. I think it's been a challenge, but not impossible.
There's a ton of tech executives that live in Charleston. Seriously.
All right, there are.
Half of Daniel Island is tech executives that fly in and out every week.
Yeah, they fly out though. That's
Right.
they're not staying.
Exactly. That's the problem. Like the ecosystem here, and really a lot of it has to do with lifestyle. They're used to a certain level of company that they're working with and a certain level of dedication. And there's very few that have come out of Charleston that are growing to the size of what these guys are used to dealing with. So the ones that have are the ones that are selling and the ones that are doing well, and quite frankly, the ones that have a mentality like you. I mean, I personally see you guys growing pretty quickly.
We're trying to. I personally see that too, but I'm a little biased.
I think we're seeing talent side is it's evolving, right?
Right.
So it isn't a chicken or egg situation like people lead you to believe. The reality is that as the companies mature, as the environment matures, I love telling people that the world didn't revolve around Charleston. Get over it. For a guy who basically travels overseas, goes to India once a year, and look at the way they're operating, it's very granular. So I've met a lot of those executives that Tom talks about. They used to having 3 assistants under them. They're just so corporate. They don't understand the startup culture at all. They talk a good game.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I just recently had a deal with Ron Buford, and I essentially just can't. I don't want to be with him anymore. It was that bad. And ironically, indirectly, he's invested in Ceterus through the idea fund. He's an investor in the idea fund. But it was so painful. He's so corporate, basically, that I was like, my God, man. I mean, every conversation we had, he was just adding costs to a startup. And I'm like, listen, I understand your management perspective, but you got to be scrappy and startup. So this is what he dealt with the first 7-8 years.
Right.
I don't need you. So you can come back in later. But right now, so I think the other side of the equation is, if we would have had this conversation 5 years ago, I just did it recently with 5 CEOs, and they said, we're not worried about the entry level. We're worried exactly what he is, which is with grown companies, the middle to the senior level down.
Right.
And the other thing, basically, to guard against, and we see a lot of this at MUSC, is the senior level talent that is here to retire. So they're giving you about 60%. They're not giving you. So you're paying basically a premium to get somebody who's operating at 60%. That's not going to work. You can't build a successful company. So it's very granular, and I have these conversations in private, but it's hard to just like, I tell people, stop being politically correct. Just tell it like it is.
Right.
And so for the very reason, he's tying together all these things with a laissez-faire attitude. If you look at MUSC, it's just a case in point. You look at the resume of some of these docs that are coming in. It's brilliant. But they've given. They just want to chill out. They want the little house downtown.
Say it's the
walk
balance.
over, just hope it
That
doesn't fall the way
Charleston lifestyle.
that kind of thing. But you have to. This is the same thing we're telling folks. That Charleston is not that. Charleston is not Boston. Charleston is not New York. But the beauty of it for us, my inquiry is right now Chicago on the East Coast. I don't know if it's Chicago the East Coast, but it's basically New York, Boston, and Chicago. So that tells me, we're heading into the right. The right winds basically, and it's all good. I think, but we do it on the backs of guys like Levi, basically, who are building successful companies and proving the naysayers. So I said, my position is very simple, right? And I've done this professionally all my life. Sit on the sidelines and bitch. I'll get into it and start swimming. And what you've done basically is you've taken on the chance that, hey, we're going to swim. And our role is just to make sure you don't drown, basically, just being all the support things and that kind of thing. And it could be a simple pep talk at 10 o'clock at night, which is what I was used to do with the early CEOs. We just wanted that privacy and don't judge me, I just need to talk,
Sure.
kind of thing. So I really appreciate it. I appreciate the passion. I mean, these are nice, we should do these more often, but I think you did it really well. And so I appreciate the slides are amazing. Nice way to approach it. And the conversation continues. So I think Levi's, if you've got some questions and that kind of thing, we'll be on for a couple of minutes. But I thank you. What we're going to do, this is really interesting. In next month, one of the companies that has landed here is a company called Network. They are one of the few, almost gaming companies. It's a company in San Francisco that's opened an outpost. And so Ethan moved from San Francisco. He said, the only time he'd come out was every 3 years, and he had to set up in his in-laws' attic, basically, and work. So I guess somewhere downtown. He said, so then they hired 2 employees over here, and he was given an opportunity. He says, hey, I'm moving to Charleston. What he does, it's brilliant, basically. He decides on the monetization strategy before any game app is developed. And I tell you, I can tell you the number of people who have sat in my office who think they've got the next best app. And so my standard line is, okay, I'm going to be the app fairy. I'm going to give you 10,000 users. Automatically, poof, you fill out. What are you going to do now? How are you going to monetize? And they can't answer the question. So this guy, nothing gets put in the oven unless it passes muster with him. And they've had some of the most successful apps, basically, on the games in the App Store, I guess. So he's going to be talking a little bit about, I think, the golden triangle of monetization is what he calls it, the golden something of monetization. It's already been posted, but so again, this what I appreciate is folks like Levi have made a decision. It's these folks are moving here who are basically building tomorrow's Charleston, and that's just really a great thing. So thank you again, appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.